This painting is so compelling to me. The emotion, the detail, the use of color, I could look at it for hours. But I do have some questions. Like, has this guy ever heard of personal space? And are those my leggings? But really, I think I had a pair of those and I have no clue where they went. On second thought, just keep them. This painting is called The Execution of Lady Jane Grey by Paul Delaroche, and this is Lady Jane Grey, a 17-year-old girl who was executed for really no good reason. This painting strikes the perfect balance between drama, despair, and doom. It was popular in its time but was later forgotten and thought to have been lost forever. Nevertheless, it's an extraordinary piece of art that ended up being Delaroche's most famous masterpiece. But who is Lady Jane Grey and how did she get here? Let's rewind a bit to London in the year 1553. Lady Jane Grey has just married Guilford Dudley, a wedding arranged by the groom's father and the Duke of Northumberland, John Dudley. At least she didn't have to marry her cousin King Edward VI, which was what her family originally intended to happen. Just before Jane's wedding to Guilford, King Edward VI became very ill with tuberculosis, and the timing of the wedding along with the king's illness seemed almost a little too convenient for the father of the groom, John Dudley. The Duke saw Lady Jane Grey's family ties as an opportunity for him to stay in power. So as King Edward VI perished from the disease, John Dudley went to work convincing him to make Lady Jane Grey heir to the throne instead of the king's half-sister and next in line, Mary Tudor. He had a very strong case because Lady Jane Grey was Protestant while Mary Tudor was Catholic, and the king really wanted his successor to be Protestant. It was for this reason that King Edward VI ultimately agreed to make Jane the heir to the throne upon his death. Lady Jane Grey was a lot of things. She was kind-hearted, intelligent, beautiful, but one thing she was not prepared to be was the Queen of England. So she was very reluctant to accept her seat at the throne. And while the royal council was in support of Jane becoming queen, Mary Tudor was furious and the broader public overwhelmingly thought Mary was the rightful heir. After Jane became queen, her father-in-law, John Dudley, left with troops to keep Mary's forces at bay. While he was gone, the council switched their allegiance and made Mary the queen, and Lady Jane Grey, her husband, and her father-in-law were swiftly charged with treason and imprisoned. Lady Jane Grey had been dethroned after only being queen for 9 days. As you can see, Mary was a true pacifist at first. She executed Jane's father-in-law for his crimes almost immediately but decided not to kill Jane and her husband. How sweet! She likely chose to spare them because she knew that they were just young, innocent kids who did nothing wrong. She was willing to imprison her cousin, but she didn't want to murder her. She wasn't an animal. But all that changed when Lady Jane Grey's father, Henry Grey, took part in an insurrection against Mary. From this point on, Mary woke up and chose violence. She basically decided to kill everyone she saw as a threat to her, including Jane and her husband. Jane was escorted from her cell to be executed on February 12, 1554. A blindfolded Lady Jane Grey hesitantly kneels onto a velvet cushion. Before her sits a wooden block where she will soon rest her head for the last time. She reaches out her arms as she cries out, "What shall I do? Where is the block?" She emerges from her dim surroundings by way of an angelic light from above that illuminates her pale skin and white satin undergarments. Her red hair flows down her left shoulder, drawing our eyes to the wooden block secured with a rope below her. Strewn on the floor beneath the block is a pile of straw to soak up the imminent blood. An older man, Sir Thomas Bridges, Lieutenant of the Tower, tenderly guides her hands toward the block. An executioner stands off to the side, passively and patiently waiting for her to find her way. He furrows his brow with pity toward the young girl. He seems to be in no rush to carry out his duties. One of Lady Jane Grey's ladies-in-waiting sits on the ground to the left of the painting. Draped across her body is Jane's outer clothing and jewelry. Her head is supported by the wall behind her. Has she fainted? Another lady-in-waiting presses her head into the far wall, unable to look at the scene before her. The artist made sure to emphasize their necks, hinting at what's to come. Delaroche's take on this historical event is tragic and striking, and in order to create such a compelling piece, he chose to take some artistic liberties. In reality, Lady Jane Grey chose to have an open-air execution on the grounds of the Tower of London, but this scene looks to be in a dark interior. Typically, during an execution, One's hair would have been neatly tied behind one's back. Perhaps Delaroche chose to show Jane's flowing hair to accentuate her identity and also to enhance the drama of the piece. Lady Jane Grey almost seems to have a spotlight shining on her. In fact, all of the lighting in this piece seems very staged. The black cloth covering the floor is tossed aside to the bottom right of the painting, revealing Paul Delaroche's signature along with the date, which looks like it's carved into a wooden stage, not unlike a stage in which a theatrical performance would have occurred. It's like the artist is admitting that this piece is dramatized and not 100% accurate. Delaroche likely had an actress named Mademoiselle Anaïs sit as Jane for this painting, someone with whom he was romantically involved. As Sir Thomas Bridges guides young Jane to her death, I can't help but think he gives off the impression of a fatherly figure. And although it was Mary Tudor who ultimately had Jane imprisoned and executed, it was really the father figures in her life that led her to this moment. Her father-in-law, John Dudley, set her up to become queen and then got her arrested, and Jane's father's actions were what ultimately led to her execution. As any child would do, Jane followed her family's guidance, those who were supposed to have her best interest at heart, and it was for this reason that she lost her life. In my opinion, the gentle, passive nature of this scene is really what makes it so excruciating to look at. It makes it feel all the more like someone could have, should have, done something to stop it. Delaroche masterfully pulls us into the scene, forcing us to be witnesses to it, making us feel just as culpable. We can kick and scream, but we'd be yelling into a void. We know what's about to happen next, just like everyone else here. For us, it's already history. It happened 5 centuries ago, for heaven's sake. But there's just something about this piece that makes us feel like maybe we can be the ones to stop this ruthless murder of an innocent young girl. What's more frustrating is that even the people who seem to have the most control can't and won't do anything to stop it. When this painting was first exhibited in the Paris Salon in 1834, it was an instant success, though some critics claimed it was too dramatic and a copy of John Opie's Mary, Queen of Scots. Its popularity may have been because it called to mind similar events that occurred during the French Revolution in the late 18th century, like the beheading of Marie Antoinette and the deposed members of the French monarchy. Despite its initial acclaim, the execution of Lady Jane Grey was largely forgotten over the years and was thought to have been destroyed during the Thames flood of 1928. Thankfully, it wasn't. It was rediscovered in the basement of the Tate Gallery in 1973 and transferred to the National Gallery, where it lives today. It's hard to say exactly why this painting is so haunting and why it continues to resonate with us even today. Maybe it's the leggings.